All right, everyone. Coincidentally, as the 2024 election primaries begin to heat up, malaria has returned to the United States. Ain't that just lovely? The Anopheles mosquito has transmitted malaria successfully from person to person for the first time in literally 20 years. The last time this happened, I was barely entering high school. Of course, he had a spattering of cases then. Before that, it was way back in the mid-'80s. My parents didn't have gray hair when that cluster happened. Malaria is back. Oh, how wonderful. By the way, the treatment for malaria, the standard treatment, is a certain medicine that I can't mention on a YouTube video. Also a coincidence, the censorship involving certain medical terminology. Have you ever heard of the term vermifuge? How about refrigerant? How about cathartic? Yes, probably not. I like editing old medical works. Now the good news is this. This is easily contained. The bad news is this. Is there the possibility that it's not meant to be contained? Could this be another lab leak moment? Well, there is an involvement by certain groups, like the Gates Foundation, with mosquitoes at the moment. Now, that doesn't appear to be likely the trigger for this. Bill Gates' mad scientist experiment effectively boils down to using a bacterium in the mosquitoes, deliberately infecting them to prevent the transmission of disease. Okay, I mean, I don't know that long-term there won't be consequences from that, but that sounds okay. Other programs have released enormous amounts of sterile males to try to fertilize female mosquitoes so that they're fertilized, but they're not actually going to be able to give birth to viable eggs. They've been genetically modified, actually. And so their brood doesn't live, and so there are less mosquitoes in the subsequent generation. I mean, the impact has been limited. That experiment appears to have been a qualified failure. It doesn't appear to have demonstrably changed the mosquito population. I would point out that mosquitoes on their own are not really your enemy. We're talking about one subspecies of mosquito responsible for malarial transmission. It's the Anopheles mosquito. The little doodad mosquitoes that you get up in New England, they're probably not going to transmit malaria. Now, the Anopheles likes warmer climates. I'm sure that global warming will be blamed on, that this will be blamed on global warming by certain people, which isn't true. It has nothing to do with that. What it has to do with, in part, is a failure to maintain policies that were successfully put in place in the United States in the 40s and 50s. Back then, with a great sort of centralized civic system. I don't believe in centrality, but elements of it did work at the time. We started literally draining the swamps. We started handing out pamphlets to people, giving the government circulars for agriculture and shit like that to try to improve land usage, to try to improve public health. So silos were retrofit. Polio was eliminated not just through inoculation, it was also eliminated through massively reducing the rodent population, for example, through modern farming and food storage practices. Better silos, better grain storage, etc., making things cleaner. With mosquitoes and with malaria, there were still cases in the United States at that time. We effectively eliminated these through two methods. Draining swampland, land improvement, and also educating the public. Hey, don't leave your rain barrels out uncovered. If you do find the mosquitoes in there, dump it and then let it refill. In fact, you can destroy huge numbers of mosquitoes by simply leaving out standing water so they lay their eggs and then periodically dumping it to destroy the larvae. If the entire public were to do this for a couple of years running, you'd probably decimate the mosquito population. Well, that's a quick and easy solution. It just requires a little water. Use that same water to water your vegetable garden and stuff. The larva will rot into the soil and give it a little nitrogen or whatever the fuck. The other way was DDT. And it's still produced, by the way, in India. It's the last nation, I believe, in the entire world that still produces and utilizes DDT, although they're currently phasing it out. DDT, for all of the horror stories about how terribly carcinogenic it is and how many eagles it killed, was really, really goddamn useful. They sprayed it fucking everywhere back in the atomic era. They sprayed it constantly. Everything was gassed out with DDT. And it decimated the Anopheles mosquito. It was very, very effective. If you were to bring back a limited run of DDT for contingencies like this, where you want to gas out a small area in order to eradicate the local mosquito population that has malaria, I don't think that that would be a problem. How is spraying a few acres of land in Florida going to impact a bald eagle living in Idaho? Well, it's not. By the way, there are conflicting studies with regards to whether DDT was even responsible for the thinner shells of certain birds of prey around that period of time. There were a number of other pollutants in the atmosphere from the 50s to the 70s, just saying. Yeah, it is constant. They were spraying everything with DDT. It's funny, it didn't cause any apparent rise in health problems among most human groups. I suppose that if you sat there huffing the DDT, it might be a problem. But the shit's not even really water soluble, so generally speaking, it was a mosquito killer. Probably killed a bunch of other insects too, but when you're going to make lemonade, you need to smush up some lemons now, don't you? Malaria is too big to fuck with. It is the number one killer of human beings. Did you know that the mosquito is the number one killer of human beings in the entire world, other than people dying like a heart attack or something? As far as inflicted death, the mosquito is more dangerous than humans are to humans. And humans are really dangerous to other human beings. We hear this constantly on the news for a very good reason. By the way, the hippopotamus is also fairly high on the list. The hippopotamus, as far as inflicted death, I think the hippo is like number 4 or something like that overall. Hippos are only found in a small area of the world too. They're pretty cantankerous. Of course, anytime that your mouth is big enough to chew a person apart in one bite, you can be a little bit dangerous, and they are notoriously grumpy. They're also weird when they take a shit, they wiggle their tail around and the shit goes everywhere, and just saying. I think we should probably tackle this. Here's how I would tackle the situation. Number 1, inform the public. Get rid of the standing water. You've got some Trailerville bullshit going on with tires everywhere. Drain the water out of them. That's number 1. Or you can trap the mosquitoes. Again, of course, anyone who's played around with a rain barrel during summer understands that mosquitoes tend to lay eggs in it. If you periodically destroy them, or if you put some poison in the water when you see the larva, and kill them, well, one mosquito is not having any future progeny, or multiple mosquitoes. Well, that's good. You've just lessened the next population that arises. Circulars should be sent out to people to teach them this importance. Hey, malaria is coming back. You can help us destroy the malarial menace. By the way, where sickle cell comes from evolutionarily is explained by malaria also. In Africa, there's a reason those populations are given over to sickle cell anemia. If you're heterozygous, that is, that you have one allele for sickle cell, you are resistant to malaria. Congratulations. Of course, if you have 2 heterozygotes mating, there's a 25% chance their kid kicks off really early and that their blood stops working, but there's a 50-50 chance that their kids are resistant to malaria. They don't show symptoms as easily or as severely. It's an evolutionary trait that happens to jettison about a quarter of your population in exchange for half of it being effectively immune from the worst of fallout of a dangerous parasite. Secondly, we should bring back DDT. I think that malaria is a little bit too dangerous to fuck with, and just ignoring the situation in case it spreads is a terrible idea. Why do I get the feeling, though, that the timing of this may not entirely be coincidental? Lots of experiments on mosquitoes, lots of public worries about pandemics, upcoming election, and all of a sudden some malaria cases break out. We'll be monitoring the situation. Of course, in the meantime, people in these areas start poisoning the water. Do it on your own. Maybe some of you can figure out how to manufacture your own DDT. You didn't get that advice from me, though. Disclaimer, I'm totally being facetious. That's about all. Peace out.